when I found my niche when I went to work for that newspaper, because that was where I belonged, as working for the as a reporter for the Nashville Banner. That was the nearest to heaven on earth, as far as I'm concerned.
How long did you work for the Nashville Banner?
32 years.
32 years?
Till it closed in 1998.
What was it like when it closed? Were you really upset? Or?
Well, yeah, but well, I was 70 years old then. Mm-hmm. It was time I should have already been out. But I just kept on working.
What was your most memorable assignment?
Well, now listen, when the Banner closed, I was a religion editor, but I had covered everything, a general assignment, so that's what I like. I've been in the penitentiary, I've been governor's office. I could go to the governor's office in the morning, penitentiary in the afternoon. I love that, and so that's what I liked.
What was your most difficult ethical dilemma?
Well, I don't know. I tried to always just tell the truth like I saw it. Now, if the editors won't change anything, okay. But I never got really, you might say, thick or in politicians or anybody that I would have been afraid or wouldn't have wanted to. But no, I didn't. And I kept it to where anything that came up and I felt like it needed to be reported, I could. I didn't owe anything to anybody. And and then the editors, of course, they could decide. But as far as I was concerned, I didn't owe anything to anybody, and I just won't tell the truth as I saw it, report it, and that was it. Because I always felt like the news media is the only agency or whatever that really can go in anywhere, governor's office, and find out what's going on. We've got the right to, the freedom of the press and all. We can go anywhere. If they throw us out, we just go back, and that sort of thing, and then write it. And so I never did say get thick but with anybody that I would not have wanted to put in the paper. No, I didn't. I could report anybody that if I saw it and it needed, I would do it.
What was your most, or what assignment were you most proud of?
Well, I covered the Marcia Trimble, and I loved them all.
I read your story about the goddess Sophia. Do you remember writing that?
I don't even remember that.
Oh, I was really impressed. I really liked the religious story about that, and just some of the stuff that you took that they recited.
Oh,
like,
well, thank you.
One of them, it said something like, it was about like a lesbian cult that they were worshiping this goddess Sophia, and some of their recitations or whatever were ridiculous.
But as they're writing every day for 32 years, and maybe 2 or 3 stories some days, I can't remember that. They're just one right, and then that's something else. Once they were over, that was it as far as I'm concerned, in a way. Unless it came back in the news, then I remember that. And then I'd go pull it back out,
Yeah.
And so that's what I enjoyed doing. And then after you stay there a long time, the newspaper reported like that, there's something can happen that maybe other people have already forgotten. I thought, wait a minute. I mean, here comes up somebody, well, I just use this example. They're just so wonderful. They're such wonderful people. Wait a minute, 20 years ago, he stole something. I remember. So see, when you stay in the newspaper that long, you know where the skeletons are in the closets.
Yeah.
And all that. And then if you don't really, as I say, get tied up with anybody, you can tell it then. It's not that I owed anybody anything. And if I found skeletons in the closet, I could report it, I felt like. And of course, the editors make the final decision. But anyway, I loved it. That newspaper, that was where I belonged.
What did you learn during your early years in the business?
It was every day you were learning and doing, and that's what I used to think. I don't have a college degree, but I thought, good gracious, every day going to the newspaper, I'm learning all the time. And then also, you've got to do your research, see, and let's see, That was funny. I interviewed a, it's not coming back to me now, a scientist, and I didn't do such a good job because I hadn't researched it or something. And then I told my editor, I said, that's the first time I ever wrote a story on a science. He said, you hadn't done it yet. I said, you go back. And that was when I first started, you know. And I had not really researched it like I should have. And he was so smart. Editors are supposed to be real smart. Of course, as I got older and did it long, I realized editors not really as smart as I thought they were. Because they could chew you out, you know. But anyway, there was something that come up like that, and I had interviewed him, and I was so proud of myself. And then I said, that's the first time I ever interviewed it. Well, I say scientist. You hadn't done it right yet. And made me go back.
How did you research back then?
Well, we had our own stuff. We could, our own files. See, that went back years and years, and then we had our library where we could call our library and say pull the files on, and they had them back in the 30s. I mean, of course now it's all on microfilm, whatever you do. I wouldn't be able to find anything now, but we had files up on the 4th floor, I believe, that went way back, and the librarians up there. And so we'd call to say, pull the file on so-and-so. Well, they could pull it for 20 years, 30 years, however. From the very beginning, it'd be there. And we just go, then we'd have to sit there, though, and go through it. The papers, you know, didn't have it on microfilm. So we'd have to sit there and go through these. And they would cut them. That's the way then they'd take and just cut the stories. And, of course, they'd have the date, all that on there. Then they'd put them in little envelopes, then file them in file cabinets. And so then you just call the library and say, pull the files on the so-and-so. We'd go up the library then and go through it then. But I loved it, loved every minute of it.
What inspired you to be a journalist?
Always wanted. The only thing I can think of is my daddy. Loved the newspaper so that if we couldn't have bought groceries, we lived down in Hickman County, we took the Nashville paper, the daily paper. And I can remember even, and then my daddy loved that paper so much that he would sit there in his chair and because it seemed like he was, well, he worked, so he'd read it at night. Well, anyway, he'd read that paper, and so I knew how important that paper was. And so then, and I watched for the paper boy. I liked the paper boy because I knew he was bringing something to our house that my daddy loved, and I would watch for the paper boy to come down the street with us. That's the way, you know, he'd come and throw it on your porch stuff. So I remember waiting for the paper boy to come and bring that paper because it was so important. And my daddy loved the paper. So that's where it all started, I guess, was the way my daddy had to have that daily newspaper. And as though we lived in Hickman County, it was delivered down there. And so I'd sit on the front porch waiting for the paper boy.
So who influenced you most?
So I guess my daddy had to have that newspaper no matter, as I say, if we couldn't have bought groceries, we'd have bought the newspaper. We had a subscription to the Nashville newspaper. And so always there was a newspaper in my house. And then also I remember, I was born in Alabama, and we lived in Alabama till I think we moved down to Tennessee when I was about 4 years old. But I also remember that down there, at our house, we always had a newspaper at our house.
Did you read it too?
Well, then there was a bedtime story in it, and my mama always read us the bedtime story. Then I'd go out, and I just loved stories and writing, and so after she'd read us the bedtime story, my sister and I had a dog that slept in a pasteboard box on the front porch, and so after she'd read us the bedtime story, I'd go out and sit down by my dog on that pasteboard box and tell him that bedtime story. I just loved the stories, all that, you know, writing and everything. And so I'd sit down by his pasteboard box and tell him the bedtime story. And then I thought he understood because he'd look at it, he'd cock his head, and he likes this story. Oh, yeah. But that's how what I thought that writing and stories and everything. Even the dog liked it.
What advice would you give to current or future journalists?
Well, I don't know. Now, I don't care about getting. I still want the newspaper like that. Want the news like that. Now I like TV, of course. You got to have it. But I don't know. I'd still see these county newspapers. Now they'll always be in business, and so I just still love the newspaper. And oh, and I have a niece that wanted. She has a degree in journalism, but this I told her then there wasn't much future as far as. So she writes for that county newspaper down there. I don't know what else she does, but she writes for the county newspaper.
Does she enjoy it?
Yeah, because she's writing for people that she knows and about people she knows and all that. So, but I don't know if she's doing anything else or not. But she does write for the county newspaper.
How have you seen news change?
Well, well, just like the Tennessee Day, it used to be, it'd take you all day to go through the Sunday paper. You know, there's so much in it. Well, now you can read it before you go to church every morning. And it just doesn't cover it. Like, in fact, they don't have any full-time reporters up there anymore, I don't think. I think they work part-time at the Tennessee and part-time at Walmart. Now, that's what I've heard. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. But that's what I've heard. There's some reporters up at the Tennessee work part-time at the Tennessee and part-time at Walmart. That's, I don't know for sure, but that's what I've heard. Well, that's it, and they don't get to cover the news like they used to. And see, you could have a story going, and you could spend your whole time working on that and doing research. And well, now they can't, you know. I mean, they just do a quick story, and that's it. And the police reports, you know, things like that. That's what they have to do now. They don't get to go out and really research it and interview and all like we used to. In fact, I was on the last, that was when it was going down. Of course, the paper did go down when I was there.
So what do you think differentiates county newspapers and then big newspapers like the Tennessean? What makes the county newspapers still thrive?
Well, because they are for the local people, and they look forward to it. They really do. In fact, I still get my Hickman County Times, and I look for it. It comes home Monday, and it didn't come this week. And I've been so upset I was going to call him and tell him it, but maybe, so I did not get my Hickman County Times for last week. Now, it should come today. It comes on Monday for me. I get it on Monday. And maybe Tuesday, but it's not supposed to be in later than that. And last week, now that's how much I like getting that county newspaper, that every day when I'd go to the mailbox, I'd think, Hickman County Times ought to be here. It did not come. And I meant to call them and say, what happened? That could have been the mail, you know. But anyway.
So you think county newspapers won't die out?
No, now they won't. And because, well, they're needed. You know, they're for the business and everything. They're really needed. And advertising, you know, the county needs its own newspapers, and they'll always have that. And people enjoy them, and then one thing now, that Hickman County Times, they used to have run a column from Aqua and Lyle and of social news. Now that was the old time. And then of course that quit because they didn't have anybody in those little towns that would write in the social news. And in fact, I think they've even had, when I was little, Mr. and Miss so-and-so spent the weekend in Nashville visiting their daughter, things like that. But just a column of social news from the Wrigley community, from the Pinewood community. And that was the old time. But people liked it. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, that's been cut out a long time. Yeah. But still, there'll always be those county newspapers because they are needed for different reasons, advertising and all that. They have to have it.
What's the most important thing for journalists to know if they want to be successful?
Well, is to just get out there and find the news. Don't wait for somebody to call you and tell you. Don't wait for, and I think now, well, because as I say, they don't work full time and don't have that time. But you'll just get the police report and do the store for police reports, things like that. That's pretty much what they have to do. But no, it's to hunt the news and don't wait for somebody to call it in for you. You can be looking for it.
How do you go about looking for it?
Well, if you're at your community, and what I used to, in fact, I picked, trying to think, as I say, working all those years and writing 2 or 3 stories a day sometimes, and it's kind of, but I have sat down I was sitting at a restaurant one day, and I heard these people talking, and I just sat there and listened to them, and I got a good story out of it. And then another time, this was something that seemed like at one of the universities or something, and we'd been trying to, the reporters know we couldn't get this news, nobody would tell us. And it was out in the Vanderbilt, Belmont area. We went to a restaurant there, and we were sitting in the restaurant, and then there was some men came in, were sitting in front of us, well, and they were talking kind of loud. And so the reporter, told the reporter, hush, hush, listen. And they were discussing some of the issues that we were trying to find out, and nobody would tell us. And here these 3 men were so upset over this issue. They were sitting there discussing it. And I told Fru, I said, shut up, listen. And so then, then I think I don't think we said anything to them in the restaurant, but then later I went to the people there and I said, now listen, I haven't been able to find this out. Now will you verify it? So see, just listen, and watch for the news, and when it is, now see, a lot of people wouldn't have paid any attention to them, or they'd just talk about themselves, but when I saw who they were, I knew them. They didn't know me, but I knew them. And then I told the reporter I was with, I said, hush, and listen. And we, so see, that's the way you get it. I mean, wherever it is, you just have your ears open and your eyes open and catch it that way. Do it yourself. Don't wait for somebody to call you and tell you about it. And you don't know where you might find it. Like that, sitting in a restaurant, just overhearing the talk.
How has your work in Nashville impacted your personal life?
Well, when I worked with the newspaper, I guess my boy would tell you, I mean, that was it. Bill, I really devoted my time to that newspaper, didn't I? Yeah. In fact, you used to get mad about it. Okay, I've had to carry him to work with me.
Have you worked in other areas besides Nashville?
Well, the Hickman County Times, I started right back. Well, see, there again, I always want to tell people, if you want to write, write. Like if you want to be a musician, don't, okay, that's not my guitar over there in the corner, but play your music. Don't just wait to sit, hold your guitar and wait for somebody to come say, come play at our honky tonk. No, do it. Get out and do it. And so write. And that's what I want to tell my niece, that if you want to write, write for anybody that lets you. And so I was writing for the Hickman County Times, I guess when I was still in high school. If something happened, I'd write out something, run up and take it to them, they'd expect them to pay me anything. And just write. And then see if somebody will publish it or think who you could write this for. Be looking for that.
What good and bad changes have you seen in the way news is reported in Nashville?
Well, because they can't hire full-time reporters that just devote their whole time to it. I mean, that's the main thing, is that they don't have anybody that has the time to do it. And so it's not really reported, that they're out on the street. Well, and then also, there was a report at the Banner. He'd go out and he'd get pretty tipsy at lunch. He'd go somewhere, he had his lunch, and whatever he was drinking. And he has come back when he was further, but he had picked up a story somewhere. Just listen, just listening, eavesdropping, wherever you get. And he'd come back with it, we'd laugh at him because we thought, well, he didn't know what he's doing. Because we had to do all our work in the morning, and by time lunch he could get out, get half drunk, and then make a difference. See, because he'd done his writing for the day. But anyway, see, I mean, he ought to be a reporter all the time. See, and then just eavesdropping or whatever. Just stop it. What, that looks interesting. What's going on here? You know.
How do you get your most of your news coverage now? Do you still get it all from the newspaper, or do you go online, watch TV?
Well, of course, I always, TV, because the news is right there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I have to have that newspaper no matter what. Just like I did back when I was growing up. My daddy took the newspaper. We couldn't buy groceries. We had to buy the newspaper. No, I'd always have the newspaper here. I'll always take that. And I still get the Hickman County Times. And I was taking the Wall Street Journal, and I loved it, but it was expensive. And I decided, well, I don't really get that much out of it, that I want to go to that expense. So I quit taking it. But I was taking the Wall Street Journal, the Hickman County Times, the Tennessean, all that. And then my paper bins out here fill up so fast. My son's had to haul them up to the street. Sometimes he can hardly get them up there.
What news station do you typically watch?
The local station, and then 48 Fox News. Fox News. If I'm not, I watch the local stations at the time the local news is coming on. Then the rest of the time I watch Fox News, because that's where the news is all the time.
What were a few of the things you enjoyed most about your job?
Well, I just loved it all, just getting out and meeting people and just being able to find out these things and telling other people, because the news media can go into these places and find it out. No other agency can. But see, I could go to the penitentiaries and the governor's office, and where my neighbors couldn't do that, but I could go, and then I could tell them what I found out. So that's what I love, being able to go places that other the citizens can't go, and then be able to tell them what's going on that they need to know. And that's what I like.
Do you feel like your stories made a difference?
Well, I was trying to think. Yeah, there has been. I can't remember now. Let's say all those years. It's been a long time now, and I've worked there for 32 years. But yeah, I was trying to that Marcia Trimble case now. Anyway, I've always felt like I was right in there reporting the things that was going on, and maybe helped a lot.
So what would you consider your greatest contribution to society or the world of journalism?
I enjoyed it. So it was my whole life. I loved it. But, well, I just helped keep people informed of what was going on. I did the best I could to tell the truth and let them know what's going on.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, that's I just loved being the newspaper reporter. That was where I belonged. I liked finding out things that other people couldn't, but they needed to know. So I enjoyed that. I was able to go in and find out these things. And I remember once going through the penitentiary. You had to go through all these gates, and they'd lock them behind you. And you lock down in, then you'd have to go through more gates. And then I had a friend out there, a prisoner, and he always had coffee. His job was to have coffee for, government, that's going in. And he had a little thing there. They let him set up. He was a prisoner, and so he always had me some coffee. He'd see me coming, and he knew how I liked it. He knew how much cream, how much sugar. And by the time I got down through the gates to where he was, he had my coffee ready for me. And so I enjoyed that.
Do you think people trust journalists as much as they used to?
I don't know, because the journalists can't get in there and find out the things, and then the paper just doesn't have the room and it's just not like it used to be, of course.
What do you think about the coverage? Do you notice anything different as far as like the type of news that they present?
Well, no, the only thing is that they just don't have the time or the resource at all to report like they used to. But I have to have that paper. Now, I don't know if I brought it in yet because it's cold weather. I don't go out and get it.
So you still think the quality of news is good? That there's not too much like celebrity coverage, or that it's still the news that's presented is still good news?
Well, I don't know. I think I could get along without my newspaper, so I'm wanting it now. And but they just can't go into depth and can't research, bring out these stories like we used to.